Hey Bill, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Great to be here.
Yeah. So I think for the audience, if you could just kind of share a little bit about your background and like to thank Tammy in advance for connecting us.
Yes, she's
She's like
wonderful.
a super connector.
She is. Yeah,
Yeah.
dangerous in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, my story basically a kid that grew up with big dreams around sports, and I was fortunate to have parents that empowered me, that gave me the freedom, that gave me the ability to dream and to reach high. And expected me to be a good person. They expected me to work hard in school, but they gave me the room to be who I wanted to be. So I'm internally grateful to my mom and dad. I grew up in the Chicagoland area where sports were big, and that made it even bigger and dreamier for me. I fell in love with the Chicago Cubs and a particular player that came to our town when I was 7 years old, a guy by the name of Billy Williams. Ended up being a Hall of Famer, and he treated me wonderfully. My mother was the driving force. She was grew up downstate Illinois, a little bitty town, listened to the Cardinal games on the radio with her dad. She just loved baseball. So baseball was kind of where I got started. And then we ended up moving out to McMinnville, Oregon when I was just before high school. And then basketball kind of became my focus. And I kept playing baseball as well. But basketball it was a door opener for me to get to the University of Portland, where I got a full ride to play basketball. I played basketball there at the zenith of the program. We had three guys that played in the NBA that were my teammates. We were very, very good. And we were also good in baseball. I didn't turn off with baseball, but my mom just wouldn't let up on me. She kept twisting my arm, so I ended up playing baseball, but never pitched. And at the end of the day, I finished my college, had no takers in the draft. And after 5 tryouts, I signed with the Medford A's in rookie baseball and started pitching, which I wasn't doing in college. I hadn't pitched since I was in high school. And 2 years later, I was in the big leagues. So it was a place where I had talent, and then 13 years of Major League Baseball, playing for 8 teams, and played here as a Seattle Mariner and had some great moments and got to play with some great players and felt like I was given a gift to
Mhm.
have that one more tryout, that mother that never gave up on the idea of me being a baseball player, and then people that obviously said good things about me that got that door open for me. So that's the story of my professional career, my sports career in a capsule. And then what happened next was my career was coming to an end, and my daughter Chanel was having lots of problems, and we didn't really know what the problems were other than she was having trouble being in out in public. She was talking, then she stopped, and every bit of her success was going away. And we eventually got her diagnosed at the University of Washington. She was 3.5 years old. That's when I made my decision to quit playing baseball. That was 1996.
Mhm.
And she was diagnosed at 12 to 16 months developmentally with mild to moderate autism. So that's when the real part of my life began, where I became, well, tried to become a man instead of being a boy, because I got to be a boy for a long time,
Mhm.
almost to 40 years old, playing baseball, playing sports.
Yeah.
And so my daughter's journey was arduous at the beginning, but because she had a brilliant mom, was able to put the pieces back together. And fast forward to today, my daughter's 32 years old. She is an attorney for the Puyallup tribe. She lives independently. She's absolutely captivating, and I am incredibly proud of her. And that really defined my life after baseball. And then a lot of decisions were made based upon what was best for my family. Was it best for me to continue playing baseball? No. Was it best for me to go out and chase broadcasting and go to some big hub and try to become as successful as I could possibly be in broadcasting? No, everything was going to happen here. And so since then, I eventually got into broadcasting and became a pre and post game show analyst for the Mariners for a quarter of a century. And from there, I got into a lot of philanthropic work, mostly around autism,
Mhm.
people that need that have special needs or disabled. That have done a lot of advocating for that and fundraising. And then I've also worked in the financial world in wealth management firms, a variety of wealth management firms. I worked in the bank, I worked in the wirehouses, I worked in the independents, and continue to do that work in both those regards. I'm now presently the director of development for the Madrone School, which is a special alternative school on the east side that serves kids with autism from kindergarten through high school. And these are the kids that can't make it in regular school. They need therapy and specialized academics, and that's what we're serving those kids. So I'm helping them raise money. The first time they've had a development person, because the school's only been really open since 2017. And I do some work in wealth management. I'm actually looking at a new opportunity presently, but I've done a lot of work in the financial world, mostly in the business development arena. I have been a financial advisor, but not presently trying to become a financial advisor. And then I mix in a little bit of podcast work. I'm trying to develop my own brand. It's called Old School Baseball. So I'm talking Mariners, I'm talking big picture, and maybe someday I'll be as big as you are.
Yeah, no, we're still growing, so
That's
we'll be on
right.
the
No,
journey.
I mean,
We'll
I
be on
just
the
meant
journey
that
together.
it's a fun venue. So I'm happy to be on with you, and this is great.
Yeah, no, no, definitely appreciate you joining us and sharing your story. So tell us about the decisions that you made that helped you decide that the family was more important than chasing unimaginable wealth in the industry, right? Because you could have been in other markets, broadcasting and whatnot, and be on TV almost every day, right? During whatever sports season there is. So
Right. Yeah.
what was it that led you to the path of, and I have to focus on that because I feel like a lot of, if you've lived the limelight, there's a tough transition to make to get out of that, right?
Yeah, I would say this, that it wasn't something that I could flip a switch and become this mature, solid decision maker that I'm sort of portraying myself to be. This was a shock to my family system. My wife was ready for an answer. She needed support because there's no playbook for autism in 1996. And not that they've got all the answers today, but they have a lot more answers today. We were left with a physical speech therapist and go get them. That's what we got. And we needed to work together for this to be successful. So, to give you an idea, I still had gas in the tank. I thought I could still pitch, and it was still something I couldn't let go of. I was still going down to the park with my catcher and throwing 3 times a week. And she let me do it. She let me do it. She knew that I would finally wake up to the realization that it was over,
Mhm.
but not easy to let go of, right? That didn't mean that I shirked my responsibilities as a dad, but it took me a while to come to grips with it. I wasn't going to play pro baseball anymore. And from that point forward, it was all about my daughter and about my family. And I just didn't have to make a business decision, a work decision right away. So I could kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And it was hard because I still felt like I was a player. So my wife came up with the brilliant idea that broadcasting is something that I should invest some time into. So I got a hold of one of the big sports radio companies in town, Sports Radio 950 KJR, and I talked to Mike Gastineau and Dave Grosby. And Mike returned my call and he said, Bill, I came to Seattle in 1991 and you were with the Mariners then. And I was new in the clubhouse and you were the one guy that always treated me nice and with respect. And so therefore, I'm going to have lunch with you. So we had lunch and he was able to put me on the air and got me some reps. And there wasn't really a job. I mean, there was Ron Fairley and Dave Niehaus. That's the Mariner broadcast right there in a nutshell. So there wasn't really anything for me to do other than I just kept plugging away. Any chance I could get on the air, radio, go on the local TV and make a piece around a big Mariner baseball series for free, talk to groups. I was just trying to get experience until eventually Fox Sports Net started in 2000. And then the regional sports network developed, and then I had a role. But that wasn't going to be fulfilling enough for me for work. So I had to think about what I wanted to do next. So, but it was a decision. I knew the right thing to do was to be there for my family, the critical time for my daughter, to help her navigate through her, the pieces that had to be put back together to make her the person that she's become. And my wife was brilliant and steadfast and perseverance and wouldn't quit, loving and thinking outside the box. And I was just good enough to kind of keep the other part of the program together, whatever it might be. I need you at the grocery store. We socialized my daughter. We never let her get into her own world. Every therapy meeting I was there. Everything that I did was about my family. And I don't regret a second of it, even if it meant that I could have chased a bigger opportunity in the market because my family had already put up with my journey in baseball because I played
Yeah.
for a lot of teams. So they had to travel around with me. And I thought the traveling roadshow, I think that needs to end.
Yeah.
And I need to start. And my wife would say, you have a degree. Let's get out there and figure out what to do with it. You're a smart guy. Well, maybe. I don't know if I am. That's what led me eventually to financial services. And I
Yeah.
and I, I didn't know what financial services were. I just knew that it was something that I enjoyed when I was in college, and I thought maybe I'd be good at it.
Yeah. It definitely gives you
That's got its own
freedom.
journey attached to it. Let me tell you, that's an interesting business. What I've learned about business, if I could share that with you, is that sports are competitive, and there's a scoreboard. Okay. In business is competitive, but the scoreboard is a fuzzier scoreboard. It's not as simple as we're going to get to the end of the day and the best player wins or the best team wins. It doesn't always work that way in business. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride. Sometimes you have to take it in the teeth, even if you don't deserve it. And sometimes you might short yourself out of a situation because you're unwilling to play the unfair game.
No, it's
Sometimes it
definitely a
is.
different sport. It's a lot of similarities in terms of what it takes to be consistent and resilient. But I imagine you've taken from the sports world, playing for multiple teams, and then transitioning that to the business world. Now, would you say that was a tough transition for you, or it was easy because you already had the broadcasting experience coming in?
I think there was just so much to learn. Ball and sports, they kind of insulate you from the real decisions that you might be able to make for yourself and for your family because you're just open to so many more people that are giving you options and way to think and a way to look at the world. Where in baseball and sports, you're insulated. Everything's kind of tied in pretty tightly, and you don't get exposed to the way you would by osmosis, learning things from just being in the work world. It's like going to college and you don't know anything. You go out in the work world, you learn everything all over again. You just basically passed a sort of a test to get out in the work world, unless you're going to be a doctor or a CPA or an engineer, where it's very specific kinds of steps that you have to take it academically. I was a business major, so it was just more about getting some background around business and then going out in the real world and figuring out what it really means to do business, right? And getting the door open. So, yeah, I think it's interesting how competitive and how competition works in business, at least in the businesses that I've worked in. And even in philanthropy, it's interesting. So you learn a lot of
Especially
things.
in
You
this
learn how
area.
to work with people, and you learn how sometimes it isn't quite the best. The best guy wins, or the best idea wins, or it doesn't always work that way.
And how have you navigated that? How have you navigated seeing that the best guy doesn't?
Well, stay true to yourself and never say die. Sometimes I left places because I didn't think I was getting treated properly, and maybe I was a little too headstrong about it. Maybe I should have stuck with it a little bit longer because I moved in the wealth management business a few times. It wasn't always in my best interest to do that, even if I felt like I was not getting the fair shake in the particular arrangement that I had in that particular firm.
Is that
With
something you found?
broadcasting, it is political and subjective. And so things can change. I mean, they obviously, quite frankly, they've changed for me in the past, 6 months. The Mariners redid their broadcast team and no longer on it.
So what was it like
So
broadcasting?
these are things that happen to you, and you have to shift and sort of say, I'm going to be positive about myself. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not. I'm not, and maybe that has hurt me in some respects. But I grew up in a household of parents. They weren't wealthy, but they were both highly educated. My mother could have been the top female administrator in the biggest hospital in Chicago when she met my dad. She went to Northwestern School of Nursing and she aced everything. My
Hmm.
dad was a brilliant chemist and chemist in the leather business. And these are two highly educated people that I grew up in the house. And it wasn't like they were making me do, like trying to make me brilliant. But we're at the dinner table when we used to sit at the dinner table. And if I had something to bring to the dinner table conversation, I needed to be able to bring it. I need to be able to back it up. So that's the person I'm going to be. I'm going to be honest and forthright. I'm not going to try to hurt anybody, but I'm going to be straight about what I think about things. And whether that hurt me as a broadcaster, so be it. If it hurt me in the business world because I didn't think I was getting a fair shake, then so be it, I guess. These are sometimes you pay a little bit of a price for your decision to stand on your ideology, your merit. I would say that it's a complicated topic
Yeah.
because you do learn from your mistakes, and hopefully you go into the next decision you have to make, and you maybe understand the landscape of that opportunity better, and that you're not so quick to saying, oh, this is great, this is perfect for me, and maybe you need to take a little bit more time to understand exactly what the scope of that opportunity is, so that you will step into that position and not be caught, be hoodwinked by the opportunity. And sometimes you have to be a team player. Sometimes you have to keep your mouth shut and be a team player. And I've done all those things too. It's not as if every single time I had something that didn't quite go in my estimation the way I wanted it to, that I immediately fought it. I'm not saying that. I didn't do that. I played sports. I understood that sometimes you didn't get it the way you wanted it. You had to play along, but at some point you're just not going to keep doing it.
Yes, and it's interesting you say that because I mean, there are times where you have to kind of swallow your pride and then
Yes.
just kind of go along with things, right? And deep down inside,
Yeah.
you're having to question yourself, question everything about yourself, but you hope that the team recognizes that and rewards you for that. But sometimes that's just not the case, right?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So, having played for professional teams and broadcasting on the matter, did you learn much? Did you learn something different about the sport that you were playing in from the broadcasting side? And could you expand on that?
Well, I think what I was always reminded of when I got out of the game is that the game is hard, and you step away from the game, and the game gets a little easier because you're not under the pressure of the game. You're not in the focal point of having to perform in the moment, where your performance is going to be extremely scrutinized, and you're under pressure to deliver in the biggest of arenas. And talking about it and stepping away from it, you can't forget how hard it was. You can't forget how you got beat. And so I always, I think, did a very good job of understanding players that have struggles, and not to take and cream them for it, because there's a human factor. You're going to have days where you're just not very good. The only thing I'm a little bit more critical of is the mental part of it. Have you prepared yourself for the situation? And how is that playing out in the way you're approaching the game? Because if you're not prepared and that's showing itself, then I will point that out. And the same thing goes for the overall strategy, whether it's from the bench or from the ownership box. I'm going to look at that. I'm gonna have an opinion about that. But as far as the player, I give the player a lot of room, because hey, I've gotten beaten, and I've gotten knocked out in the first inning, and I've been sent to AAA, and I've been told I'm not very good a lot in my career, and I had to overcome it. So I believe there's a long runway in the sports, that you have to accept failure and learn from it. And if you do, you're going to be more successful. And so I've kept that in mind in my broadcasting. I've never gotten trapped in that hot talk. Oh, this guy can't play, or this guy can really play, or that guy can't play. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's way in between that.
Yeah, it's important having that experience as a player and playing at such a high level. When you find yourself in that other room, you have to remember that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because you've been there, you understand it. What was it like broadcasting for the Mariners during those early 90s? Because, I mean, they had a pretty successful team during that era.
Yeah, so I started. So my last year was 1990. Well, 19. I played with the team in 1995 when they basically broke through, and went to the playoffs. I was not part of the playoff team, but that was like the end of my career. So I played a little bit for the '95 team, and
Mhm.
then I went into broadcasting after that, and that was a good team that had finally figured out that they could win. I started broadcasting at that time, so they had really good players. I mean, gosh, Hall of Fame level players: Randy Johnson, Edgar Martinez, Kenny Griffey. Just Jay Buhner. Did I mention Edgar? I mean, it's just an incredible group. Omar Vizquel, incredible group of talented athletes that really kept baseball on the map, kept it from moving, kept it here in Seattle. It never would have happened without having such star power and having success at the right time. So, it was fun to talk about, players that I was very familiar with, because I'd played with them. I knew how good they were and what made them tick. And I think I was able to start to really express how I saw the game through broadcasting, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed, just like prepping for a game that I would pitch, I would prep for a game that I was going to broadcast. And so I really enjoyed digging in and really understanding what it was going to take that day for the lineup be successful, the pitcher to be successful, what is going to be the real competition of this particular game between these two teams, how's it going to play out. Baseball is a lot about thinking ahead. You have to think ahead. You have to be able to react in the now, but the guys that can think ahead and see the game that way are the ones that can do really well. And you can pre-script what's going to happen, and you're better prepared. And I was very good at that as a pitcher. Whether I certainly wasn't the most talented, but I was, I think, very well prepared, and I could think ahead, and I could see where things had to, how to approach the hitter and how to get him out. I was very good at that. So it's just a joy. It was a joy because it gave me the competition, at least to a level of coming on the air and kind of competing against myself to be my best self on the air, right? So it wasn't just having the knowledge, and it was about the delivery, cleaning up your delivery, being succinct, being entertaining. These are things that I had to develop over time, and I just loved it. And I always have loved it. It's never gone away. I always told myself if I have to drag myself to the park or to the studio, then it's time to quit. And that hasn't happened, even though I'm not really per se doing work for the team. I'm doing something a little different now,
Mhm.
but I'm taking the same approach. I'm still watching the games and paying close attention to what's going on, and nothing has really changed from that standpoint. Yeah, so it replaces the competition. There's a little bit of that performance competition that's built into it. So I think that's been good. Plus, baseball, there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to the game. The season starts and the spring training starts, and then the rhythm of the game, which people love. People love because you play every day. And I haven't yet gotten off that ride. I'm
Yeah.
still on it. I thought about saying that's enough, before the season started, but I decided that I would dig in a little bit more and see if I could do something with just my own brand. We'll see. But I'm staying on that ride right now and keeping the rhythm going and still enjoying it and finding time for it and getting a lot of I get reward. It's cathartic for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting because I mean, you can actually just get your phone, go to the game, and do a show over there really, with today's tools, right? I mean,
I guess
there's
you could.
there's
I
almost
guess you
no
could.
you want to create that content.
Yeah.
What do you notice about the game today versus when you were officially broadcasting and when you were as a ball player? Like, has the game changed? Is it faster? Is it slower? I mean, what are you seeing?
I see a game that's played by bigger, stronger, faster athletes that are better prepared. There's no question. I see an athlete that is tuned himself in on a 12-month regimen. The game is enormously rewarding, more so than when I played it. So that means there's a lot of competition. You're getting that kind of the billions of dollars that are floating around. The competition is high, and the athletes are great. I think the game from when I played it, where your best instincts served you well, and there was a lot more individualism in the game. You had to develop your game, and there wasn't as much information. There's no video. There wasn't as much dietary information, training information. That started to come into the game a little bit toward the end of my career. And then as I went into broadcasting, over time, the overlay of being able to measure swings and look at things under video and see things in slow motion and really break down the art of the game to a point where you can really fine tune all the movements and actions that you have, whether it's as a pitcher or as a hitter. And from that point, teams that are less wealthy start to invest in different ways to measure performance. And all the statistics came out that have really started to invade the game. Lots of measures that are different than what we're used to, things like batting average and ERA and runs and RBIs and things that basic fan understands. Well, now we're talking about things like BABIP and OPS plus and WRC plus and WAR and all these different measures. There's a lot of math. I think that all of it has helped organizations in a way be more efficient and find underlying value. So there's some real merit in using those measures to understand performance and to certain ways to find talent where maybe others can't, or to help level the competition when there is such a spread between the teams that are in lesser markets and the teams that are in very wealthy markets, although they're all using the measures. But what it's done, unfortunately, and the fact that we've wanted to speed the game up because our fans can't seem to pay attention long enough, they've got ADD,
Yeah, you got to thank the cell phone
that
for
we've
that.
kind of gotten to that place where I don't know that it's the game that I'm used to seeing. That we're talking about things that I don't think matter as much as the actual game being played in the live. To me, all that stuff is great, but once the game starts, we're talking about live action. And to me, it bothers me that we have a communication system that the catcher's telling the pitcher and the pitcher's agreeing and they're throwing the pitch and there's no time for the pitcher to think, so he's not thinking. So the catcher's calling the game, and then he's getting some kind of a game plan from someone who's a strategist that never played the game, that operates upstairs somewhere, that somehow thinks he's got ownership of what's going on. Then you've got players that have cue cards in their back pocket. They have to look at the cue card to tell them where to stand on the field. And then we're looking at our iPads while we're sitting on the bench, looking at our last swing. Why do we need to look at our last swing? I think you should be looking at the game and figuring out where the strategy is. Where's something that I'm missing as I'm watching the pitcher, as I'm getting ready for my next at bat? Or as a pitcher, what am I missing by not watching? Play the game in real action. Human factor. You can't put everything in a measure. You can't determine that a guy is done at 90 pitches or 100 because every game is different. And a lot of this, in my opinion, is a little bit insidious. They want to control the game from the top. They want to make it streamlined. They want to take away, heck, they want to take the starting pitcher away. The marquee
So
pitcher,
who's
they
going to
don't want to pay
pitch?
him $35, $40 million. They don't want those guys that pitch 200 innings. Because if I got a whole staff of guys and I can add more pitchers, I'll have a whole staff of guys that throw 3 innings.
So you have a lot more
That's not the
fresh
game I
pitchers.
want to play. And we got hitters and a viewpoint of the game that says, hey, you know what? We don't care if you make contact, strike out at 180 times, but if you hit 25 homers and you walk, that statistically says that's good for us. I mean, here's case in point. If you've been watching the NBA a little bit and you watch the Boston Celtics that are going to go down in flames here shortly to the Knicks, a team that's far inferior to them. Now, they did have a devastating injury to Jason Tatum last night. They're out there shooting the three ball and without any reason, and losing the first 2 games without taking common sense that says we're not making the three ball, even though you can tell me that I get 3 instead of 2 and I've got 4 guys on the floor that can shoot it. And if you take the numbers over a long expanse, that says that I should shoot the 3 every time down the floor. But when in real time, in a real game, it doesn't always work out that way. You got to take the ball to the basket. You got to try to get a free throw. You got to try to get rhythm. You got to play the game in real time. And they're going to lose. Hey, yeah, are they going to lose now because Jason Tatum's out? No, but they lost. They lost because they lost sense of the game in the first 2 games of the series. Baseball is a lot like that. A lot of decisions that are made at the moment that are critical moments in the game where you turn the ball, you take it away from the best pitcher on the planet, the starting pitcher, and you hand it to someone that's not as good. And you're saying, I'm doing this because he's got 97 pitches. Well, what is 97 pitches? Every day is different. Watch the game. Make a decision in real time. Bet on the starter. If we take Secretariat and we decide Secretariat the greatest horse that ever lived,
Mhm.
let's just say that instead of letting Secretariat train to get ready for the Belmont, we don't. We don't train him for the Belmont. He only runs a mile. He's not the best. He's not the greatest horse of all time. That's what we're doing. We're taking the secretariats of the game and we're turning them into, Beetle Bomb. So I don't like it. I'm not in favor of it. I don't like the players being anesthetized around performance as far as playing the game in real time. I don't see the game that way. And I think fans don't want to hear about WRC Plus or WAR. Now they're fed it, and maybe it's good in the back room, but it doesn't play on TV for me. Maybe our
Yeah,
announcers
you don't
were
even know
kids
what.
that grew up and where they had to go to the chalkboard and show us the math. Show us the math then. Show us your math. Do you want to tell us about war? Show us the math. You can't do the math. You can't. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you can't do the math. So I can go on and on about this, how I see the game. Like I said, we have a popular game. It's still very popular. It's downsold because it's not popular nationally like the NFL. It doesn't fit in that 16 game every Sunday little box. It's just so perfect, right? But it's very regional, it's very popular, and it still remains popular. And the money tells you it's popular.
Mhm.
So I just think more players, less management.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of management, and it almost plays into the theme of what happens when the machines take over, and you're
Right.
seeing it. You're seeing a superstar athlete being whittled down.
Yeah.
One day where he's feeling sick is just going to throw off the averages, and then it's going to put them in a different box.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
I see the game through the lens of the one that I played, which was, I felt like I grew up in a wonderful time in life. I got to invent myself. I didn't have a dad that was a super coach. I didn't have a private coach. We used to watch the games and go out in the yard and pretend who we were. Pretended. We did things, we made things up. We had the freedom to do that. And then as a player, I loved the fact that I owned how I was going to prepare for the game, not being fed information and being in this position where I've lost the ownership of what I'm doing. So the players can play the game. Their brains, the way their brains work, they can play the game. They don't need the rest of that stuff. And I guess I'm the dinosaur looking for the ice because I think I understand numbers pretty well. And I don't buy it.
yeah, I think there's a some healthy combination of both.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, I mean the NBA has become a game of threes.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
It's become a game of 3-pointers.
Yeah, I was just bringing that up because it's very
Yeah.
top of mind right now. Because that's statistics being played out right there. You lost track of what's going on, and there was a game a couple years ago. Blake Snell, who's top flight pitcher from our area, he's throwing a no hitter. He's with the Dodgers now. He's coming back from injury. A very talented left-handed pitcher. He was with Tampa Bay, and they were playing. Was he with Tampa?
What was his name?
He was in a playoff game with the Dodgers. So who was he with? He was with San Diego. A couple years ago, he had a no-hitter into the seventh inning, and they were beating the Dodgers. They win that game. They got the Dodgers down, and they took him out because of pitch count. They lost the game.
Yeah, he played for Tampa Bay, San Diego, San Francisco.
So, I'm sorry that I don't have my name straight there, but, that's case in point, where sometimes you just have to throw that out the door.
So they needed him to rest, basically.
Yeah, they had their numbers and they were very true, and they just said, that's it. Your job is done. And I think that starting pitching is the unique pitcher. That a relief pitcher is a guy that can't start anymore. That's why he's a reliever. If he could start, he'd be starting. So the best pitchers are the starters. So why in the world would you take and collar the starter? Now, does that mean we should let him throw 150 pitches a game? No. No, we're not going to do that. But we're going to compete. We're going to look at every day uniquely and say, he's had a stress-free game. I'm going to let him throw another 10 or 15 pitches. I'm going to pitch him into the seventh inning. I'm going to let him get one more out. I'm going to get him 2 more outs. And I'll get one less guy in the game, and that'll reduce the risk. Because that's the human factor. Every day, every dog will have his day. You put enough people in the game, and somebody's going to be the dog. Keep trying. You're playing Russian roulette with one bullet in the chamber, but you just keep click, click, click. One of them's going to go off. But they don't think that. They think that they just have their little specialty guys, and they have every day, every inning, one guy. And it's tiring for me to watch that. I'm sorry. But anyways, enough said on that.
To keep track of if you're broadcasting.
Yes.
So, how do you see the Mariners now? They're on top of their division, and they're a quarter of way into the season. How do you think that's going to play out the remainder of the season?
I think they're in good shape. And right now, they're in a little bit of a losing skid. They need to get their 2 best pitchers back, and they're going to be a little bit on the want because their pitching, the game is built around pitching for them, and their pitching hasn't been as good, and their hitting's been a lot better than we expected. So I think it's going to find its way back to norm. Their pitching's going to rebound when these 2 guys come back. In the meantime, they may lose a little ground, but offensively, they're a better team than they've been, even though they didn't really change their personnel dramatically. I think the addition of Dan Wilson as the manager and Edgar Martinez as hitting coach has changed the culture. Even though they haven't changed personnel, the culture changed. And with culture change, they become a more efficient team. You can do more with less. You can not have as talented as a team, but if you do things like not strike out as much and put the ball in play and use your speed, you can do things and overcome a little bit of your lack thereof. And their pitching's just not been up to where they've been in the past, but I believe it will. The division is down. This is not a great division. It's not. Houston is eventually you keep losing great players. Bregman and Tucker this last year. You can't be the team that you've been. So they're okay. They're okay. The Rangers are talented, but they don't know how to win anybody. They're not scoring any runs. Angels are terrible. The A's are actually very good. The A's are the best team in the division outside of the Mariners, I think. So I think the division is very tightly played. I think the Mariners are in a good place to win the division this year. I really do. And the American League, for the first time in I don't know how many years, the American League has always been the superior league since I've been playing. That's a long time. And broadcasting, it's always been the superior league. They're not. National League's better. For the first time, I can say that there are half a dozen teams in National League probably better than most of the American League, and that's not been the case forever. And so you kind of put all that together, and the Mariners are in a good place. They just need to get the two big studs, Kirby and Gilbert, back pitching, and everything will start to fall back into place for the club. And I like their chemistry. I like the way they're playing. And I think Dan and Edgar are doing a great job. And of course, I'm partial because they're my friends and my teammates. And
Yeah.
I think they're winners. You're putting real winners on the field. So let the winners impose their winning on the team. If you're management, take a step back. Let those guys do their thing. They know how to win.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
If you get my drift.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us about the Madrone School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was such I'd stepped away. I'd been with an organization called Northwest Center for a long time. And after 12 years, I guess I was there. And that's an organization that employs people with disabilities that have their own businesses. And we had two schools for early intervention, early learning. It was a great place, a big organization. It was the right place for me to be. And then, it was time for me to step away from that and find a new opportunity. And this kind of came out of nowhere. A board member that I had actually taught his kids pitching lessons and up 10 years ago. And he reached out to me and knew that I had been involved with autism. And he said, "Can you have a cup of coffee with me?" And I said, "Sure." And he needed me to help him with they had a gala in the fall. And so I made a donation and learned a little bit about the Madrone School and then some other opportunities that I was doing some stuff in Native American mentorship. And that kind of fell apart. And because my family's Native American, I was doing some stuff with sports and mentoring Native American youth. But that opportunity kind of fell apart. And then I was kind of open to something new. And this Madrone School opportunity came along, and he says, "Well," I said, I've got some time." And this was after I'd made the donation. And he says, "Well, I can set you up with the board. Put a little plan together. What do you think you can do?" So I did. I met with the board. They hired me on the spot. And that was right before Christmas. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I could do this. I could do that. You fake it till you make it." I mean, I said, "Sure, I can do a golf tournament in 5 months. Yeah, no problem." So we had no development here. And so I am development, and we're going to have a golf tournament here coming up in June. But the Madrone School, again, it's an alternative school for kids with autism, kindergarten through high school. We're talking about kids that the problem with when you need all this like specialized therapy that in the public school, you can't get it in the school. So parents are pulled in all different directions trying to help their kids. And these are kids that are a lot more in need of high touch help, and the public schools can't provide it. So here we have a one-on-one situation for every kid, academics and therapy, all pulled together in one place. So we only have 30 students. Right now we're in two campuses, two churches, one in Redmond, one in Bear Creek. We're going to be moving to our own space, the old Madrone School space, 11,000 square feet this fall, right behind the Redmond Target, the business park there. We're very excited about the move. It's going to allow us to have our own therapy clinic, which is going to be a way to reach the community beyond the 30 kids that we're serving right now. We're going to be able to increase enrollment. But this is very, because of insurance, it's because even though we want to grow, some of it's going to be limitations because you have to have the right insurance to get the therapy and to be in the school. That's just how it is in the state. But, these are kids that they deserve it. They deserve to be able to, their folks, their families, they deserve their kids to have a place where they can be safe and they can learn and reach their potential. Whether they can be kids that can go back to public school, which does happen sometimes, that'd be a hope and a dream, and that they can have some level of independence as they grow older. You never say never. My daughter had all kinds of problems at the beginning and struggles. And, of course, everything kind of fell in place with her. But I know that this is a wonderful population. The kids with special needs and kids with autism, they have something that we don't have. They don't. They're not jaded. The rest of us are all jaded. They're pure of heart. Pure of heart. And that's something that our society really needs, that we should tap into. Our kids should be around these kids because they're pure of heart. It's going to make you a better person to be around them. And then if you become their friend, that's special. That's what makes us a better world. So being here is a big deal for me, to try to be if I can open the door a little wider, if I can help us create, maybe we can subsidize more kids. We're just at the beginning. So, yeah, because I've been fortunate. I have a daughter that's doing her own thing, and most of them can't. So, it's the right place for me to be.
Yeah, and you have a very powerful story within your own family, right? Um, because that's impressive that from your daughter's struggles to graduating law school
Yeah.
and now practicing.
And it wasn't easy for her. She chose the hardest thing. We said, I don't know, critical thinking, that's not like your long suit, right? Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay. And by hook or crook, she got into Seattle Law School.
Shadow you.
And it took her 4 years instead of 3. It took her 3 tries at the bar, but she did it. So she gets applause from me because she stuck to it. She didn't give up, right?
It's
So she
resilience.
made her dream. She's still figuring out what's next. She wants to do some other things now. She's been working in Native American tribal law because of her family, and she's looking to do something else now. She's trying to find another job up here, get out, move up north, and she's in Tacoma right now, which is great. I'm very proud of her. She's very proud of who she is. She's not afraid that she's autistic. She feels like it's made her a better person.
It's awesome. So what's the goal for Madron's goal? What's your goal?
I think right now we're trying to fill the field. I mean, we've got a full field is 36 teams. That I don't what 30 the ideal actually is 32 because then you get a little more flow to the golf tournament. But it's a charity tournament. We're going to play scramble. It's June the 2nd at a great golf course where they hold the Boeing Classic. There's the golf club at Squamish, and we're still filling teams out. It's going to be a fun day. We have wonderful sponsors, Titleist and Cutter and Buck and Blazing Bagels. We have wonderful prizes and great sponsors. And so there's room for people to come out. We'll have some celebrities. We'll have some former Mariners, former Seahawks, some potentially a former Sonic or two that kind of will lift the moment for people that like to meet those types of people that have supported me in the past, and we support each other. So our goal is to get people to come out and have fun and then have the opportunity to learn a little bit about who Madrone is. Would we like to raise money with this event? Yes, we do. We have a goal to raise. Yeah, we'd like to raise. I think for this event, if we net $100,000, that'd be a great day. But
What is
that's not the overwhelming thing. The thing we want to do is provide people with a fun opportunity to enjoy themselves and learn about what the Madrone School is all about and why it's so important. And maybe it's something they'd like to continue to support. And because our kids, our parents of our kids, and they all work in really good companies because they have to have the private insurance. They are so overwhelmed with caring for their kids that they can't advocate. We need to find an audience outside of the school for this to be successful. We have to have people that understand, hey, I get it. I understand how difficult this journey is for people that have kids with autism. I want to be a difference maker. So those are the people I'm trying to find. Like I'll start with someone that wants to have fun and play golf. I'll start with that.
yeah?
You don't have to buy off on everything until you come out and play golf with me. But we have room for people to come out and play. So happy to provide information if it's something that strikes your fancy.
So going back
Excuse me.
to one of your goals earlier. Tell me more about the podcast idea. What are you thinking?
So the podcast, I call it Old School Baseball. I think it's an appropriate name after you heard me talk about what I think about baseball. That there was a different style of baseball. There's something that respects the game that I played, the game that I grew up with, respect for that. And maybe it's a little bit of a push against the modern game, a little bit. And I think I can relate to I want to talk about the game and get inside the game and share the game from my lens, but also talk about things that matter to me. The way the game is being structured, the way the game is being delivered and built and growing, and what sort of potential roadblocks are out there, and what does the game have to do to thrive and grow. And I'm gonna pay close attention to the Mariners and because that's right in front of me and what I know best. But we're going to talk about the game at large, what's going on, the bigger themes, whether it's robot umpires to torpedo bats to whatever else is kind of things that have to do with markets. When we see teams like the Tampa Bay Rays playing in Fort Lauderdale at a AAA park, to seeing the A's now playing in Sacramento in a AAA park. And how does that happen? We don't see that in the other sports. Why is that happening? It shouldn't happen. Especially with a game that's so affluent. And we have some bigger problems ahead. It's sort of like, when we think about our economy, and you drift along and you keep printing money, and eventually, you can't keep kicking the can down the road, right? Baseball's got a lot of inequity between the Dodgers
Hmm.
and the Miami Marlins. Okay. That's a big spread. None of the other sports have someone that's got a $60 million payroll and someone's got a $380 million payroll. How is that possible? How is that right? And where's the middle ground? Well, the distrustful players union will tell you that we're not going to negotiate those guys. They never show us their books. How can we believe anything they say?
Hmm.
Because the game actually is going to require both sides to come together with some method of collaring the top and lifting the bottom without calling it a cap. Because if you use the word cap, the union packs its stuff up and goes back to the hotel. Because the players grew up on not letting the owners treat them like indentured servants. We went through all that, and Marvin Miller helped the players win. They hoodwinked the owners. The owners got hoodwinked, and they've been bitter ever since. But the game's got to fix itself. It's regional, and it shouldn't be the haves and the have-nots are too far spread out. And if the players can come to a realization, understand that actually getting a lift from the bottom will end up giving them more money than to try to keep reaching against the top and letting the bottom continue to fall. These are things that we have to think about that are important. You don't want to have another Armageddon. We already turned the game off once and almost lost it in 1994. I was part of that. Can't have that happen again. There's other sports out there. Eventually, you're going to wake up and they're going to go, I don't know about baseball. Maybe it's had its time. I doubt that would happen, but there's other things to pay attention to, right?
Yeah, I mean, today you have access to so much entertainment and
Correct.
information that, if you're going to focus on baseball, spend all your money on baseball, does that leave anything for when the NBA opens up? Or now you have Major League Soccer,
Mhm.
right? So you're all competing for the same dollars in an already
That's right.
squeezed consumer market, if you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to screw the kill the golden goose. Don't do that.
Yeah, maybe I mean, they could start with making those concessions a little.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, they're not cheap. That's for sure. It's not if for family of four to go to a game, man. It's just no small measure.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
it's a it's a big ticket.
I mean, how much is a for reasonable seats at the Mariners plus food and drink for family of four and $100 parking?
I don't know about that $100 parking, but you know, if $200 to $400, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be expensive. What'd you guess? Tickets, concessions. Would we get to $100 a
Five,
person
yeah,
total?
600 total.
You think? Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if it's that much. I think you can obviously pick the days when they're offering attractive rates to come to
Yeah,
games, and there's packages that have food and stuff in them, and there's ways that they've tried to create an opportunity for families that don't have big resources to go to games. And baseball's probably better than most. I
I
mean,
think
the other
baseball's.
sports are really expensive. Baseball is actually caters a little bit to that audience. They have a lot more dates, so that doesn't mean you're getting off cheap. There's no such thing, right? I don't know. I mean, I grew up where the game was so far away, right? I loved the game, and I didn't get to go to the games all the time. And I grew up in Chicagoland area. I probably went to maybe I went to one Sox game, and I went to maybe three Cub games. Growing up, it's not a lot. Watched a lot of them on TV. Had my amazing mom, right? I'll tell you a quick story about my mom. So we had a grade school that was probably 7 blocks from my house. We did not. It was a brand new school, so we didn't have a lunchroom. So I'd go home for lunch. And in the spring, I had a plan in my head every time I went home for lunch that maybe somehow, maybe in some wild way, I would not be returning to school that afternoon. Very unrealistic. But I'm a kid. And I would get done with lunch, and my mom and I would talk, and we'd eat lunch, and I'd keep kind of stalling and stalling and stalling and hoping that she'd come to some realization that I didn't now have to go back to school. And my mom was so cool because on occasion she'd go, don't go back to school. I got some stuff to do down in the basement. Let's go down and watch the Cubs game. That's my mom.
Yeah.
And like I told you, she was a really smart lady and a good student.
I mean, you could call it
So lucky.
homeschool.
I was homeschooled.
You were homeschooled.
I think it had anything to do with what we were studying that afternoon, for sure.
I mean, you're studying the game,
That's right.
which
She
led to your
knew. She knew.
profession.
She had it all mapped out in her head. She had it all figured out for me.
Well, anything else you'd like to add? Maybe 5
Um,
goals for the aspiring professional athlete slash businessman.
Wow. Okay. I would say you need to pick something that you can get excited about every day when you wake up. It's got to be about something that you really want to put your heart into, that it means a lot to you. You got to be willing to pay the price. You got to bring enthusiasm. And I think as far as resiliency, you got to be resilient. And, you have to remember that the runway is long, that no moment can define you. And what I tell kids a lot of times in sports, I said, you know what it is that makes the difference? It's what you do when no one's watching. That's what makes the difference. It's what you do when no one's watching. Can you put the time in away from the game when no one's watching? That'll determine your success. And I put a lot of time in away from when no one was watching. And that's how I got to where I was, besides having amazing parents and some amazing coaches along the way and people that believed in me. You got to have some people that believe in you. So I always try to think about it that way too when I'm in the world of being in the position I'm in, because I believe in people. I'm a big believer. Sometimes that doesn't work so well. Some of my choices as well. But as far as trying to influence people that are trying to make it in the world, I think that we need to believe in them a little bit more. See the best of their abilities and make them feel like they can do it. And they got to do it. But a lot of them need a little bit more inspiration to believe they can. And I was lucky to have that.
It's getting interesting with the AI coming on because that could very well change what the meaning of work is for people.
Say that again.
AI and the impact of AI, whether it's
Oh, yeah. There's just some things that are the inferences of things that are written that can't be defined by AI, but you better be in front of it. When you think about your skill set, you better be in front of where you think it's going. It's like what did Gretzky say? It
yeah,
wasn't where the puck was. I was thinking
hey,
about
where
where
the
the
bucks.
puck was going to go, right? So I think in anything you need to look and try to figure out where the puck is going. And AI is going to be a part of that, right? So you got to be aware. It's interesting. There's a lot more talk about how the opportunities in the world of business and work. There are some lucrative opportunities for people that don't go to college. That maybe even going to college may not be the most lucrative pathway for yourself to be successful.
Mhm.
There's a lot of jobs out there that will pay very handsomely to someone that may decide not to go to college. And it speaks to the dysfunction of our school system, that we're leaving people out because we're eliminating some things that they should kept in industrial arts in general, all that stuff. The master apprenticeship type of approach. I'm a big believer in. And I think it makes those that are then looking for the lowest common denominator and falling out of the system stay in. So I think that we should do a better job of thinking about what educating our populace really means and the opportunities that are out there in business for people that don't necessarily have to get a 4-year degree.
No, I truly believe there's a lot of opportunities out there for that space. It's just nobody's aware of it,
Right.
nor is the system currently designed to support.
Correct.
You kind of have to find it accidentally,
You do.
which is unfortunate. I mean, the
Yeah.
construction trades are very well defined, but there's a whole lot of other industry that people can benefit from. Yeah. So,
But you and I are going to figure that one out today, probably.
yeah. And then, yeah, I guess lastly, any lasting thoughts for families struggling with autism in their family?
I would say that, kind of the same thing that today might be really bleak but you just have to have some belief in the human spirit that you got to hang in there. You got to hang in there because today might be just terrible, but tomorrow might be better. You got to keep believing that your child can grow and can get better. And hopefully, the resources will get to you and your family because it's really overwhelming. It's so overwhelming that it crushes families. It's financially overwhelming. The divorce rate around families with autism is off the charts. I don't know. I think at one time it was north of 80%. So not an easy topic. I think if you're a family member that doesn't have the child, that you need to think about that. How can I support my brother or my sister and what they're going through? Sometimes it's the simplest thing, right? You know, you're paying attention to a child that's maybe being disruptive in a grocery store or someplace. Maybe it's a time to lend a hand rather than to be judgmental. I'll tell you a quick story. I was had my daughter for a day, and I made a really foolish decision to take her to the golf driving range. I thought that was a great idea. Not a good idea. Because once I'd hit 2 or 3 balls, she thought it would be good for her to go out there and grab some of the golf balls. Can't go on the range. Bad. So I got a guy next to me who decides to take that moment to tell me what a terrible parent I was and what a terrible child my child was, and that I had no business being there. And he was right, but he didn't need to do it that way. So I packed it up and went home. We went someplace else, and it was out of sight, out of mind. It was over. Bad decision on my part. I'm at a golf tournament. It was a Mariner golf tournament. This is years and years and years later. I'm sitting in the golf cart. We're getting ready to go out. And this guy kind of walks up in front of me and he's looking at me. He's looking down. He's looking at me. He's looking down. I'm like, you can ask me a question, or if you want me to sign something, I'm happy to do that. No problem. And he goes, I have something to tell you. And I go, really? And he goes, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago, you were at this golf driving range, and I scolded you and your daughter, and I didn't realize your daughter was autistic, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did that. And I'm like, oh my God, that guy hung on to for a long time. But I think the littlest things that you can do sometimes are big for families, or for when you're struggling, and you don't need to be told that you're a bad parent or your child's disruptive, or you may not really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what the message is. I mean, I think it's finding those resources. It's hard. It's hard. We were lucky. I had Major League Baseball insurance, and we had time. My wife and I had one child, so we were lucky. Because it's not so easy. I have friends that have kids that are. One of my very good friends, his daughter has 2 twin boys with autism, another child on the spectrum, and 5 total. And she's about having a nervous breakdown trying to take care of him. And he's got the ability to help her, but he can't be there every day for her. He's doing well in life, but it's overwhelming, right? And so the programs, having, for example, a Madrone, where the therapy and the academics are in the same place, and we need to provide that for all the students, not just the few that can afford to stroke a private check or have the right insurance. It's got to be better than that. We got to do better than that. Come on, state, let's go, right? Got to do better.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure
Yes,
having
sir.
you. Really enjoyed your listening to your story, and we can see that you're very passionate about all the things you're doing here. So look forward to seeing that podcast.
Yeah, old school baseball. You go
That's cool.
go to at old school _ MLB on X, and you can get all my stuff.
Okay, we'll certainly find it. Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much. You were a great host.
Thank you.